Hi, and welcome to Complete and Cast, the official podcast of Complete and Box Video Games. I'm your host, Spencer, and today in episode 23, we have Game Review number 2. And we're once again joined by Parker Lindstrom. Parker, how are you?
Hi, I'm a gamer. So that's why I'm on these reviews, because I'm a gamer.
You are actually, this is your third episode, so therefore you're the gameriest gamer, besides me, nice. King Gamer.
King Gamer. Prince Gamer or Jester? I'm Jester Gamer.
Jester Gamer
Duke
sounds...
Gamer.
So listen, that's about all the fun we're going to have in this episode, because...
There's nothing fun in this episode.
Because in the last episode we talked Resident Evil 5, and today we're going to talk Resident Evil 6. So let me save you about 30 minutes right now. Resident Evil 6 is the worst, and we'll go into it a lot, but the Resident Evil 6 is, the worst game.
It's the worst Resident Evil game. It's the worst game.
Yeah, it's just, okay. So again, I mentioned it in last episode, which was our game review number 1. We're just kind of doing this to give a fresh take on game reviews. We generally are going to be doing games that we like, and now we played Resident Evil 6 co-op, the PS4 HD remastered version, so this is not going to have anything to do with when it came out on the PS3, just the PS4 version. And we break it up into 6 different categories: story, gameplay, sound, which is like voice acting, music, all that, graphics and atmosphere, fun factor, and replayability, and we give them a grading out of 10. Now, as I mentioned before, if this was a good game and it ended with a 6 or a 7, that meant that it's kind of a good game. Right. I view 5 as average. So if I give something on this a 5, I view it merely as average to every other game out there. Right. So unlike this thing where 7 is average, this isn't high school, right. A 5 is an average. Right. Yeah, although it's still kind of failing. So, with all that being said...
I mean, you don't want to be average, especially with a AAA title. I mean, you're spending how much money to make a game? If you make an average game, you fail.
I mean, whatever money they spent on this one is...
Right. I mean, whatever. If it's an indie game and it's average, okay, well, great job. You made something. But,
team of, 10 people or whatever. Yeah,
pretty good. You have this many people working on a thing. It better be good.
So, I'm a person who, for anyone who knows me, I'm a person who is rarely at a total loss for words. And that's a very nice way of saying I could, talk my way into and out of anything. Right. Into a paper bag or whatever. I don't know where it's... Besides saying we're starting with story, right. I don't know where to start.
It's all so bad.
It is okay, so let's start with this. Resident Evil 5 it took it into the way more action-oriented type of thing, and Resident Evil 6 clearly emulates it in a lot of ways. It doesn't have... a pause function anymore. Everything you do is kind of real time, and it takes the general feel of both the co-op and that. So it should, in essence, be it's Resident Evil 5, but better. Right, in essence. The other big thing that it does, and we gotta talk about this in story, is it switches it into 3 different quests. Jake and Sherry, Chris and Piers, and Leon and girl who looks like Claire but isn't Claire.
Yeah, I forget her name.
My sister girl.
Yeah,
I forget it. So, and it hasn't been that. No, Sherry's the one we just did, and it hasn't been that long. So, that's huge.
Yeah.
Because what happens in here when we're talking about story is you have 3 different things going on at the same time. I believe we figured out that it's about a 6-month window that everything takes place.
Right. There's a 6-month gap.
So a big event happens pretty much in the Europe-ish kind of area, the Russia kind of Eastern Europe.
That's just Chris and Jake. Their stories take place there. Then there's a 6-month gap. Then Leon's doesn't have a 6-month gap. Leon's is pretty much starts when the 6-month ends. Yes. For the other 2. That's when Leon starts, and they all intermingle from there.
Yes, and then that's a big key, because every single character meets one of the other characters at a time.
Yeah, each group meets the other group.
So when you're playing it, and we did Leon's first, so you do Leon's and you're like, oh, it's Chris. When you go back and play Chris, you're going to be like, oh, it's this part with Leon, kind of thing. And it's just guaranteed to happen no matter what way you do it.
Exactly.
And it makes a story that is already... Oh, it's so much harder to do games that you hate than it is. Resident Evil 5, it just flowed. It was I really liked it. It makes a story that you already hate even more confusing.
Right, that's the thing. If it would have been great, you would be oh, I can't wait to get to that part where I see Chris. Because that part was cool, and I want to see it from Leon's point of view, or vice versa. But, like, in this game, you're angry and frustrated at all times. So then when you are playing a quest and then you're like, oh, we're going to meet up with Chris, and it's that BS part where, like, everything sucks. Then you're like, great.
And you're like, we have to... Literally, you're like, we have to do that again. Yeah. Now, once in a while, they will change it up a little bit by being like, oh, Chris has to fight this fight. But there's 2 or 3 fights I can think of, big, huge fights that you literally do twice, and you do the same thing twice.
Right.
When you're, and again, spoilers, you shouldn't even care on this one.
Right.
When you're Jake and that big Burrow, that big guy who's following you the whole time, you know, you meet him in the city 6 months later, and Chris is there. It's like you already did the fight in full. Every single thing has been done already.
Yep.
So and like there's a good example of them doing it, and if they did this the whole time, it would be great. Later in Jake's quest near the end, you see that huge larva thing that's gonna reach out.
Right.
And that one, Chris had to fight that fight.
Right.
And Jake and them somehow got thrown off to the side, and they're like, oh no, we're not fighting this fight. And, you know, it's fine. You know,
they were getting out because of Jake's blood.
Yeah. Yeah,
so
it was important.
They're like, you need to get out of here.
And that's fine.
Right.
I mean, it's not good, but it's fine. It's whatever. But, dude, I don't even know where to begin. Like, literally...
The story is so bad.
It's so bad. It's so confusing. So, let's start here. Each Resident Evil game beforehand was in an area. Resident Evil 1 through 3 was in America.
Right.
4 was in Europe.
I mean, you had a mansion and Raccoon City.
Right.
And then...
Raccoon City again, but it kind of got a little bit bigger.
Wider,
right.
yeah.
Resident Evil 4 was in pretty much Eastern Europe-ish kind of area, but like in that general area. Resident Evil 5 was pretty much in Africa.
Right.
Code Veronica, for any of you hardcore fans, will say, but Code Veronica takes place in some island in the south and also Antarctica, but it's Antarctica. No one lives there. Right. It's like a secret research base, so we can't really count that.
I mean, it's almost like when you get on the tanker in 5 and then in 6. Like that's a separate location. You're not in Africa anymore. You're on a tanker.
But it's not worldwide. It's not worldwide.
Right. It's the same idea of being like in Code Veronica and you're like in this new area. But it's not like you're not like jet setting around the globe or anything.
And Resident Evil 6, you are jet setting around the globe. There are 2 big places this takes place, and one is China or someplace in Beijing or something like that, and other is someplace in Europe that looks like it's literally still in World War II. Now this is a huge area. Now, this might seem hella epic or whatever, you know, but when we're looking at this story-wise and trying to figure out if this all makes sense, and again, we talked last time, Resident Evil 5 was a silly story, but it didn't quite cross the line because you're like, oh, well, Wesker's a super villain, bad guy, but whatever. Right. It's the virus. Like, it's literally, you can just say, it's the virus that does it, you know, whatever. Absolutely. But Resident Evil 6 takes it and makes it, like, so confusing and so, like, this... Okay, so I would say this every time when Parker and I were playing. I would be like, what is going on here? Right. Exactly. There are 2 huge events that clearly every, like, living person you see is affected by it in Europe and China. So that's literally, like, millions and billions of people.
Right.
But at the same time, especially Chris and actually everyone, Sherry and Leon and all that, they keep talking about following protocol. So, like, Chris especially. Chris is...
calling things into headquarters.
Chris is the worst. Like, Chris in 5 was, like, kind of, like, in the point where he was, like, had enough of this crap. But, like, Chris in 6 is, like, the worst. Like, to get him into the game, they have to, like, pretty much, like, beat him into it and be like, we found you in a remote village in Europe, you know, blah, 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 you know. But he's just, like, the entire time he's like... I'm only here because, you know, I have to, you know,
they never explain why he's there.
I have PTSD. Yeah, they never,
they never do.
We could spend the entire episode talking about, like all these loopholes and everything, but the big thing for me was, okay, at a certain point in Leon's... Sorry, gotta be professional. So at a certain point in Leon's quest, Leon is with the President of the United States, and the President of the United States becomes a zombie. Yeah. Now that's like the beginning of his quest. So I'm gonna give you a second to get that idea in your head. So
and he has to shoot him.
And he has to shoot him. He has to put the president out of his misery or whatever, right? So and the area is in. I guess Leon also takes place in the beginning and in the U.S. because the president's there. I'm guessing.
Yeah, I
maybe
thought that was in China too.
So whatever. Regardless,
that he was there for an event or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Again, that wasn't very clear.
Who really cares? But, so the president of the United States is turned into a zombie and dead.
Yes.
And there's like a nuke dropped on China that turns every living being into a zombie. But at the same time, all these characters are talking about like protocol. The one that like blew, like imagine that. Like imagine if like in Walking Dead, like Rick was like, no, like when everything was crazy, we gotta follow the exact law. Like eventually, when you get stuff under control, you're like, we gotta have law again.
Right.
Totally understandable, and they do it in the thing. But like when they're like.
But it wasn't even about following laws like, let's not murder people that we just met or anything. It was like, we need to gather evidence for the case that's going to be put up against these people.
So Ada Wong is like the worst character in this. Right. She's so snarky and lame. And like Chris the entire time is like, no, we have to get this evidence to bring Ada to trial.
Well, no, it's not Ada, it's Simmons.
Oh, Simmons.
Right.
Who turns into a huge BOW and you fight him for 2 hours. But so say Simmons doesn't die, right?
Right.
And like okay, there's two kinds of world this could be. There could be a normal world where like an area of something is bad and you're like, we gotta fix this, and to do it, we gotta do it. Or there's a worldwide outbreak where everyone's dying, in which case you're not like, Simmons, we gotta put you...
Right.
Yeah, and they present it that way, so it's not like, Simmons, we gotta put you down, take you to court and put you in the slammer.
Right.
What slammer? It was exploded by zombies.
Right, exactly.
So like the entire time when they're like, we have to send this in the HQ, and like literally every scene he's like, HQ.
Chris loves talking to HQ.
And HQ like is like, I guess, still existing somewhere.
I just imagine like the other end of like the phone just being in this bombed out shelter with like zombies walking by, and it's like Chris just keeps going, they mutate now to make big giant war things. They mutate now, and their legs look like crickets. They mutate now.
I'm sending over the coordinates.
I'm sending the
schematics. So, like, clearly they're past the part in, like, say, Walking Dead Season 1 where that guy is working in that disease center, and he's like, eventually he's like, I give up, but at least he's trying. They're past that point where, like, it's like all around the world. Yeah. But, like, there's so many moments at the end of Leon's quest. The girl is like at a peaceful cemetery visiting her sister's grave. So my question is, where is this cemetery and where is it peaceful? At the end of Jake's quest, Sherry is riding first class, typing up something about Jake. So my question, and she mentioned specifically like, maybe things are starting to go our way, and it's like
things have calmed down.
It's like, okay, but you're like, everyone in first class is like, oh, yes, I'll take Appletini, please. So it's like, okay, like, where are we in the world? Like, it is not clear in the least. No. And you could play it, and, like, every single part you'd be out, like, where are we in the world? Like, you can't just be like, the world, everyone in the world knew, even back then when, like, Hiroshima was, bombed, or, like, Dresden was bombed or whatever, and it's like, the world stops, kind of thing. But it wasn't like it was a city. It wasn't like, oh, it's China. Right. It's like all of China, and it was like, and it wasn't like they, it gets firebombed, and it's like, oh, everyone who got firebombed can go out and bite someone else, and make it like right, it would be like if the bubonic plague happened now, and it's just like, over here in America, we're like, no, we don't really need to do anything about it. It's fine.
Like there was a major terrorist attack, and then the bubonic plague spread across like 90% of the world, and then it's like, you'd be like,
They show over and over again these maps that are like infected areas, and it is literally all the heavily it's like the US is 100%, and all these places are like, and you're like, okay, you can present it like, dude, like humanity is down to like its last thread, and I'd be like, okay, that's great, that's where we're at in Resident Evil. But then they're like, oh man, like Chris again in the beginning of his quest is at some place where all the people are normal in Europe. But then you go like a little bit farther away in Europe and like everyone's like zombies. And it's like, dude, come on. Like you gotta like and that's
and there's just like giant BOWs smashing whole villages.
Yeah, and not even just zombies, like 100-foot BOWs. It's like, oh, that guy again, hope he goes away, kind of thing. And it's like literally like even without going into how dumb the story is and how dumb the characters are.
Neo Umbrella, this whole idea that there's like I guess those BOWs are from Neo Umbrella, so like there's an organization somewhere in this world that's literally dropping off these major infected type things to try to like cause events, or like whatever. Like, what are they getting out of it? Like, do they want the end of the world to happen?
I mean,
like, what's happening?
It's a question you got to go back to like original Resident Evils and be like, okay, Umbrella was crazy. They were trying to make these like BOWs to like have power and stuff like that. But there's a difference between having a tyrant who's like 7 foot tall that you're like, I can control him, and having like this 100-foot thing that's like, where do you store that? Like, what do you have these like warehouses of BOWs?
What happens when you win? Then what? Or do you
we kill all the BOWs then, or we have them under control. It's
right, but then it's like, and then what? Like, and then what? Do you rule over like a husk of a world? Like, what are you doing? And you have no idea.
There's literally no like characters like Simmons are introduced and like have nothing to do with anything, and yet Simmons somehow is the guy that is above Ada, and Ada's always the one that's like, I thought this 10 steps ahead, and somehow Simmons is like this dude that's like, I thought it 1,000,000 steps ahead, and also I injected myself with this stuff, and I'm a huge monster. So it's like, literally, like every single part of the story is the absolute worst. Every single part is absolutely confusing.
So confusing.
I
I've replayed certain chapters because of not getting because there was something wrong with the co-op where I didn't get credit for having beaten them. So I replayed a few of them just to get it so that I have credit that I beat it. And like playing through it slowly without like you and I making fun of everything, like and like trying to pay attention, I still don't get it. Like it's like I thought part of it was like, well, maybe it's because we're giving it such a hard time, and if I like listened, I would make sense. It's like, no, it doesn't help at all.
I mean, we could spend literally an hour in this. All the characters suck. Chris is like a husk of himself, and he's like, it's like he has PTSD, and he's like, I'm so back in this. He's like so weird.
Well, like when they first find him in the bar, and then they get him, like they're like, you gotta do this, and like bioterrorism is the only excuse he uses. Then they show him in China, right? And you're like, oh, I guess he got his memories back. And then at some point, Pierce is like, oh, I would have thought that you would still be a little rusty, but it looks like that training's worked out. And he's like, I don't care about this. I'm just here because of the bioterrorism. And you're like, what is happening? Like, why is he here? What is...
Even we just played this earlier today when Jake meets Chris. And Jake is, ready for this, Wesker's son.
Yeah.
And Chris is like, I killed your dad. Which, by the way, okay, like literally, I hate to say it to like Jake, but it's like, your dad injected himself with like a virus that made him into like a 15-foot monster with like a huge detachable arm that tried to kill us. But he's like, I killed your dad. And Jake pulls a gun out at him, and Chris is like, do it. You have every right to. And it's like, what? It'd be like. I killed your dad, Hitler.
Right.
What?
How dare you? He was my dad.
It's like, dude, I'm sorry, man.
Sorry,
he was
no idea what he did.
Like he is literally like the worst person in this entire world. Is just like, I want to kill everything. I made myself all crazy. I'm a superhuman, whatever. And it's like, yeah, I was the one who killed your dad. And then like, there's no further explanation. He's like, he just finds out that Wesker is his dad, like, which for some reason
within a week, like within days of that,
and for some reason like he knows that or whatever. Yeah. But then it's not just like, I got to explain this further. You know, your dad went crazy
because he didn't know it in the beginning.
Might as well kill me, boy.
Right.
You know,
he didn't know it in the beginning when it was 6 months ago with Sherry, but then when they get captured and then it's like 6 months later and they're in prison, like apparently after in the process of doing those tests, they explained to him who Wesker was.
I think that was actually like, something they explained decently,
right? And it's like, but it's like, so he understands. But I'm saying, so he understands who Wesker is. Why would he be upset that anybody killed him? Anybody. Like
I would be like, oh, that's my dad and you killed him? Awesome, dude.
He sounds like a horrible person.
Thank you. Like, I'll try not to be him. Great.
Oh my god.
Like I said, just so we could go into every character. Every character sucks. I mean, all the side characters, all the main characters are like, I'm war torn, you know, hardened, and every side character is like, no, it'll be all right, kind of thing, and it's just the worst.
So, having played one of the earlier ones that Sherry was in, is she like able to heal herself then, or is that?
They never explained that. So the only other Resident Evil game she's in is 2, where she is literally like 8 years old.
Right.
And her dad, William Birkin, injects himself because he's like dying from gunshots and becomes the big bad guy. And I guess he has enough. And this is, again, the point where it's still believable. He has enough, like, humanity where he realizes it's Sherry and doesn't try to kill her, but he does inject her with something, like a virus or something.
Okay.
And the big part of the last part of the game is you have to come with a vaccine. So that part makes sense where it's like, I was injected with, whatever, but for some reason the vaccine worked, but not fast enough, and I can do this now. Okay. But it was crazy how that was a big reveal and nothing else happened of it. Like, she got cut.
She got this huge. She got impaled.
She got impaled, like and then it heals. Thing. But it's like there was nothing else mentioned.
And he's like, "Oh, what's going on here?" And she's just like, "Oh, I don't know. Like,
I don't worry about it."
She's just like, "Well, they've been testing me, but whatever." And it's like, that's it. That's all we get.
Yeah, and just like I said, we could literally go on and on about this. I don't even know where to end. Now that we started, I don't know where to end with it. It is just absolute trash. Not a single part makes sense. No. Let's end on the story part with this. Yeah. We found online a guide to how all these different quests are set into 5 different chapters.
Right.
So there's a very specific way you're supposed to play this, like Chris number 1, then Jake number 1, then Chris number 2, whatever. Right. If you have to do that, the game sucks.
Right.
It's just like when someone tells me, like, I'd be like, the great example is Dead Space 2. It had a lot of confusing parts to it. Good game, but confusing parts. And my one friend who was really into Dead Space was like, "Oh, well, you got to read the book." Wrong.
Right.
That is not like that. It's great for like. It's great if you're like, I like Dead Space. I want to read the book, but it's like, oh wait. To understand Dead Space 2, I have to read the book. No. Yeah, that's BS. Like, you can add to it and be like, oh yeah, or you can do a side story, but it's like, if I have to go into this game going, all right, Parker, now that we did Jake part 1, let's do Chris part 2. It's like, no, that's the dumbest crap. It's stupid, and they'll be like, people were on the message were like, it makes sense when you do it like this. Wrong, like stupid, dumb, like
it is dumb.
Then make the game like that. Whatever,
no, sure. But like, here's the thing, like, once we finish them all, like, replaying it in an order isn't going to help that story. There's no way. Like, the stuff that we have a problem with is not like not being able to put a jigsaw puzzle together.
Right.
Like, it's like they never explained it. Like, there wasn't a part in Leon's quest or Chris's quest where they explain why Sherry can regenerate herself. They never talk about it. So, like, those are the problems we have with the story, is that there's, like, major glaring points that never get talked about. So it's like, there's no way that playing it in a specific order will do anything except just get you more frustrated.
It's just one of those classic things.
Because, I mean, and I know this is going ahead, but, like, playing it that way with the story would be so awful because of that whole thing with changing the UI in every single
and we'll go into that into probably in gameplay. So let's end with story. I refuse to give anything a 0 because that means that it is like literally incomplete.
Unplayable.
A 1 out of 10. It is it is worse than fan fiction. Like, I could read a fan fiction and be more impressed than this. It is truly terrible.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything I could give it a 2.
Redeeming.
Like, anything I could be like, well, this... I mean, I will say, okay, I'll give it a 2 just because I like that when the storylines intersect. I like the idea of it. Unfortunately, the game's so bad that I'm annoyed because I remember the part and
you have to do it again.
And I'm like, ugh. But I like them intersecting with each other, and I thought, like, that if it would have been a good game, that would be especially cool to have them intersect like that.
I can see that.
And then you can play them from different perspectives.
It's at least you tried star.
Exactly.
At least you tried.
So I'll give them a 2 for that.
So I think that would be the one that has the biggest glaring problems with the game, although the game still sucks. Next up, we have gameplay. Now, I have a less to say about this. The game still sucks, and it's still whatever, but it's the gameplay itself was okay. Right. Like, it was all right.
Well, good. Piggybacking off of story, which is the last thing I mentioned, was every character's, when you're playing through every character's game, the UI changes,
which is a user interface. Right. So when, like, you bring up a menu or something like that, the menu
stuff and all that, it changes. And in fact, in Jake and Sherry's quest, it changes within their quest. After the 6 months go by, it changes again. And like, it's just like, it doesn't change so much. Like, it's not crazy drastic, but it's just enough that you don't feel comfortable with what you just got comfortable with. Like, you got comfortable learning the UI because the UI was not intuitive. That's the first part. Like, it didn't start off intuitive. 5, I never played 4, So, like, I'm assuming it's probably similar. But, like, I never played 4. So when I played 5, right off the bat, I was like, I understand this. My item management made sense. I didn't have to get a tutorial. I didn't have to ask any questions. I was immediately into the game. I wasn't constantly trying to figure out what to do. I was in. I was fine. In Resident Evil 6, when it started, I was already confused because, like, the UI was confusing to begin with. Like, it wasn't intuitive.
Well, how long did it take us to figure out that the little, if you're looking on the bottom right-hand side of the screen, in case you guys are Googling this or whatever, how long did it take us to figure that those little individual dots were the health? It took us, like, literally a half hour to be like, why am I dead?
Right.
And, like, if you have to ask in a game, like, why am I dead? Right. It's like, dude, come on, you know?
Yeah. I mean, once you figure it out, it's like, okay, these things make sense. But there's, like, health, then there's stamina, then there's, like, your, the way you do the herbs, where you store them in, like, a pill case, and then you eat them, and it's like, you gotta look at that number too.
I will say, as far as that's confirmed, doing that herbs thing is really weird. Like, having, like, in the heat of battle, you just want to be like, okay, whatever. You know, but you have to combine the herbs or just use it and make it a pill. You put it in the case, then you press R1 and they eat it like a Tic Tac.
Like,
and I like the idea, but
I like the idea that R1 heals you. Like, I mean, the idea that you don't have to go into a menu to get the healing thing. Like, you just click R1. But, like, that was the other thing, was, like, if you had a first aid spray, which still existed, you had to, like, press up and down, and then it was, like, a separate menu, and then when you pulled it out, you had to hit your trigger button to use it, and it was, like, and then if you forgot that you had it out, like, if you took it out, or if you accidentally took it out, then you would go to shoot a gun, and then you're actually spraying yourself.
I had so many times that happened.
And it's like, good lord. Or you threw a grenade and you didn't mean to. But, like, grenades were, like, so complicated to do that I literally, like, used maybe a couple in the whole game. Like, I used way more grenades in Resident Evil 5.
Oh, no question.
Because, like, it was
They're
like,
helpful
okay.
too.
Like,
yeah.
oh, like, you know, like, oh, we have to get, like, I use a flash grenade on that guy to try to, like, stun him or whatever. And it's like, okay, this makes sense. But, like, I, like, just didn't bother. Like, I was just like, whatever. I was like, this sucks. And, like, it just, overall gameplay for that was awful. And the fact that with Chris and Piers, with Leon and whatever, Claire, not Claire. And Jake and Sherry, they start out with, like, not much weapon-wise. And they slowly gain weapons over the course of their quest. And even in that case, like, but, like, in Chris's, you start out with every weapon you could conceivably need, because obviously they're in the military. I would be annoyed if you didn't. Like, it would be annoying. But the problem is you never have, you can, like, you're always out of room. Like, I was constantly out of room.
Yeah, they give you, I think, 10 slots, but it's like you have 4 weapons.
Right.
And also, Resident Evil 5 gives you that thing where you're like, you can store it in a box, and then at the end of the chapter, do it. Resident Evil 6 doesn't have anything like that. No. So it's like you have 3 or 4 weapons.
Right.
That's 4 slots, and then the ammo for that, that's 4 slots.
Right.
So you're done.
And sometimes you want to have a weapon you want to have extra ammo for, so that's 2 slots.
And they have some arbitrary number, like sometimes for handgun it's like 50 or 100 that you can have, and any more than that is an extra slot, and it's like, dude. And,
right.
and I found that, especially during Jake's quest, I was just constantly being like, I want to pick this up. Oh, I picked up a flash grenade. Let me go throw this away. Triangle, left and right.
Oh my god.
X.
Yeah, X.
And then you have to press left to make sure that it's like you absolutely do want to throw it away. It's like, trash, no. And I would always press trash, and it would be like, no. And it's like, And it
So
cannot be
terrible.
understated that the UI changes on every single quest, and
right.
I swear that most of the time they look very similar, but I swear that Leon's quest, you access the items differently. Like, maybe it's vertically instead of horizontally, or maybe it's like more like a circle or semi-arc kind of thing.
Yeah,
but like it's kind of confusing.
Right.
Like, you do it and you're like in the heat of battle, and you're like, and you go through, and it's like, why did they change it?
Right.
In the middle of Jake's quest, they changed the UI. What is it's like, did a different like even if different parts of the company made it, which is, like, acceptable, it's like, did they share notes?
Right.
Like, for what reason? And that's another thing about the gameplay that could have been very cool if the game was good. Each quest is a different type of game. Chris is the, I'm in action, blah, blah, blah. Right. Like, you're rarely
you start
ever
out with all the guns you need. You have tons of ammo. So it's not like, you're not like, oh, like, I'm not, there's no survival horror aspect to it.
Jake's Quest sucks, but is a little more like of a mixture of all three. It's kind of like, sometimes you're out, but like,
there's a lot of quick time events.
I guess you could say Jake's Quest is a lot more like physical because Sherry has that,
they both have a melee option.
Attack.
Right.
And then Leon's like verges on like very horror. Like you're in like a literal like mausoleum and like all these like very weak zombies are coming out and it's like Resident Evil kind of thing. Right. So it's like we played Leon's and then we took a break because of the holidays.
Right.
And we come back like a half a month or a month later and we're playing Chris's Quest and it's like I don't feel like I'm even close to playing the same game.
Right.
Like I remember back to Leon's Quest and I'm like, oh wow, you had that part where you're in like some guy's shop and like you have to like kind of fight off the hordes and you barely have any weapons and whatever and it's kind of cool and it's tough. Don't get me wrong, but it's kind of cool. And there was that
part where you were like moving those things around and then you would bring your gun up that would have a laser sight and then you would like arc that off of something.
Oh yeah.
You know, like it would like bounce off a dish and it would like light things up in the mausoleum.
I remember that.
Like,
and that was good.
And it was
cool.
Like, okay, whatever.
But then
like
you do like Chris's Chris's you're just like, damn, I'm just gonna blow everything up. And Jake's you're just like, I'm gonna go against like run away from this enemy. You know, like,
I'm gonna hit. I have to hit R2 at just the right.
So disjointed and so in general, again, it's not game breaking.
Like you said, it could have been awesome because you could have been awesome. like, wow, I got 3 different games for the price of 1.
Oh, and that's another. I mean, this falls under gameplay. What a long game! Like I don't know how many hours we put into it, but I like mostly we play at night. But we had a couple days where we played like a decent amount of the day, and I'm like, good lord, like I'd be like,
it just keeps
oh my god, like especially Leon's Quest just went like I was like we were on it for like 2 weeks, like every other day, and I'm like, oh my god, like. We played sometimes the chapters would be 2 hours.
Right.
So even if every chapter is an hour, which that is not the case, there are many that are more. It's 15 hours.
Right.
5 times 3.
Exactly.
It's probably like a 20 to 25 hour game, and we weren't like, especially near the end, we weren't like, let's explore. We were like, let's get this done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was still so long.
Especially like Leon's Quest, there were parts where like I wasn't exploring because I was so annoyed at how like annoying or how like frustrating the zombies were, where they would like jump across the screen and do shit that
you're
they never
reminding
did.
me of that.
Like, that was so annoying. They would do stuff that you like and hit you, and that you'd be like going to aim at them, and then one will be behind you and they hit you, and rather than just like getting hit and still being able to aim, you like get knocked out of your aim, you almost fall down, and then the other thing's running at you, and you're like just getting so frustrated. Like I was getting like angry at that game.
This is the ultimate example in terms of everything, but especially gameplay of stuff, cool ideas that just weren't implemented. Right. They have this really cool thing where you get knocked down and you can aim while you're lying down to shoot up. What a cool idea. Absolutely. But it just sucks. And cool ideas in sucky games are still sucky. It just is what it is. I mean, I'm sure I could keep again that the idea of making the herbs into pills is kind of cool, whatever.
Right,
because then when you make them into pills, they don't take any item slots, and that's kind of nice. But again, it sucks because it's in a sucky game. You got some pretty cool like melee weapon or melee attacks and stuff like that. R2 we spent a lot of time just like beating on enemies, even enemies with
because
guns.
The other problem is it's an action game, so it's like what you would expect from like Borderlands or something, like an action game, and yet you're always out of ammo, like constantly. So you're like, well, I better try to beat this guy up because I really don't want to spend as much ammo as I need to. And like, if you're gonna throw 1,000 enemies at me, you have to throw if it's Doom, you're throwing ammo at me all the time.
Every enemy that falls, exactly. In the new Doom, every enemy that does it,
So, but it's like if you're gonna throw a ton of enemies at me, you gotta give me at least somewhat of an ammo. And if you want to make it an item management like survival type game where you're like trying to use your stuff sparingly, that's fine. But you can't put a respawnable enemy like Resident Evil 1. The enemies, for the most part, don't respawn. Like, there might be areas that refresh after a certain point because something else happened.
Right.
But for the most part, if you decide to kill one in the certain hallway, that hallway will be free next time. Or you could know, I'll always run around these 5 zombies because I know how to run around them, so I'm okay with that. So that saved me like 3 or 4 bullets per zombie. Like, that's huge. Like, that's huge savings.
And you alluded into the big part of the gameplay, which is why, again, I'm going to grade it poorly. It's so boring. It is like a 20-hour game where like it is like legitimately
just running to the next room, running to the next
I mentioned
room.
Resident Evil 5 does a really good job of being like, oh my god, that was intense. Like
right.
there would be times where we would be like, woo, and like barely surviving and whatever. But then it's a chill time where there's like, you go into a new village and you're like, why is no one here? What's going on? And you want to explore. But Resident Evil 6 is literally like a huge enemy or a huge room of enemies. The next room, maybe you have 1 second where they're like quirky, blah blah blah, being annoying, but then instant enemies, and it's just enemies, and
then boss.
I don't even care if every enemy you show me is like a unique enemy, like whatever. Who cares? Like it was just enemies,
right.
and it was just constant.
And then towards the end, when the enemies start mutating more, it's like just like exhausting. Like you shoot an enemy. Which in the beginning of the game, you would shoot an enemy like 3 or 4 times and it would finally die. In the end, then like their arm blows off, then they grow this big ass arm. Then their other arm blows off, they grow a big ass arm. Then they like turn into this other thing, and you're like, I get it, but like if you're gonna throw waves at me, like
those are normal enemies. Like out of 30, 40 enemies, it's not like Resident Evil 4 does a great enemy called the Regenerator. It's actually a super scary part. It's only the regenerators usually in there, and essentially what they are is they have one decent size weak spot, and if you don't hit it, it does not matter what you do, it's going to regenerate. But if you hit it, it dies. Gotcha. And it's really good. And they make it to the point later where they put the weak spots on the back, so you got to get away from it and get behind it and whatever. And it's cool. But like this is just like you're regenerating, and like every single enemy is one of those like Plagueis things, and it's just like I don't, again, this is part of the story, I don't understand what the mutation is this time. Like it's super weird. Some of them like burn up and then become mosquitoes. Yeah. And then the same looking guys
they turn into like a hardened like figure of themselves, and then out of that bursts something. Sometimes it's like that real low running fast one, or it was that big one with the armor, or it's the one that's made of bugs. And it's just like, and it's like, could have been cool, but like
technically a ton of enemy types, but it's just so boring because it's just all you. Even in the parts, well, again, we mentioned this last time, and we won't do too much more on gameplay because what else can we say? There's driving parts in this game, real driving parts, parts where you actually drive. Now,
a car,
like a car, and I was the one who drove in this, and like I don't have the greatest eyesight, but I'm sitting there on a decent TV watching it, and I can't tell when a car is not within like 50 feet of me, and I'm like, you have to drive fast to get rid of away of whatever's going from you. But it's like I would be like, it's a car, It's like
it was so twitchy.
You literally like Need for Speed Underground did it 15 years ago, and it's like, oh, there's a car up there, cool, and it's a nighttime kind of thing, and it's like, dude, like it was just brutal. Like every part of the gameplay,
the motorcycle part, just the worst.
Just
and it could have been cool.
Just in general, like it got. How can a game with so many constant explosions, near-death experiences, enemies surviving but not surviving be so freaking boring? Yep. Like, moderation, like if you did it like, that's what made some of the old school Resident Evils, like Resident Evil 1, you killed Tyrant, but then you're out at the end getting in a helicopter and Tyrant's still alive, and you're like, oh, but imagine if that happened 50 times, and that's what happens in Jake's Quest. You kill him. And you kill him, and you kill him, and you kill him, and you throw him in lava, and he still comes out, and it's like, dude. Like, when it happens all the time, you're like, I literally know this enemy's not going to be dead until the game is over. Right. Whereas, like, Tyrant, it catches you off guard. I feel like it's going to come out. I felt like after the credits, it was going to be like his hand was going to come up. That would have made it a literal 0 out of 10. So, we have a couple more quick things to reference, but gameplay for me, I'm going to be a little nice here because I'm mean on everything else. It was playable. It just wasn't fun. 3.5.
Yeah, I would give it a 3, because, like I said, the things that they tried to do, you could see how they could have been cool, and maybe in a certain games they would be cool. And like some of the stuff was like okay, like you said about like the herb thing was a good idea, but then everything else fell so much badly around it that it was just like, well, I can't even enjoy this. Like that's like I like storing the things into a thing, so I don't have to, but it just was frustrating, and I just. Yeah, I saw 3. Yeah.
Okay, 3. And so the rest of the parts.
I mean, I didn't want to just stop. Like, I didn't just say like, you know what, dude, you can play this on your own.
Yeah,
that would be like a 1.
Yeah, Like
I mean, the story was bad, but I was making fun of it, so it still ended up being.
Imagine if
funny.
you had to go through that yourself, though. It would be so. Okay, so the rest of the parts we're gonna blow through because it's parts that is very generic when it comes to this game. Sound, voice acting, music, whatever.
Yeah.
Boring. I mean, the voice acting's not bad. No. I mean, it's okay.
Yeah.
But like this is Resident Evil 5. We mentioned how they do a really good job of choosing when to not have music. Right. I swear to God, this game had music all the time. Yeah, if you played a song, we just finished the game. If you played a song for me right now, and would be like, "What game is this from?" I'd be like, "I don't know. What is that? Is it like an orchestra? I don't care."
And it doesn't matter. Like there was music playing constantly, and I don't remember any of it.
Like, so I can't really. I mean, again, voice acting's okay. They said the lines, whatever. 3. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, I would give it a 2 or 3. 2.5.
2.5.
It's just boring. I don't remember any of it.
Just boring. I mean, again, there's times where it's cool to be like all silent and whatever, but it sucked. So, graphics and atmosphere. This might be the one where I actually give it the highest praise out of all the different parts. I mean, it doesn't. Again, we're playing on the PS4 remaster. Right. I would go as far to say that I think that Resident Evil 5 might have better graphics. I don't have any like side-by-side kind of thing going on.
Yeah.
But I mean, it does a decent job of setting up where it is. Like the second we saw that war-torn Europe area, we were like, Europe. You know what I mean? Like Europe. Right. It took me a little bit because China looks, a lot of parts look like America. Right. It took me a little bit, but then I was like, oh, China. Like when you're in Chinatown, it's a bit boring because everything's over and over again the same thing. But you're in Chinatown. You're in China. You know.
I will say though that like the one thing. I mean, this could be graphics, or I mean, I don't know if this was gameplay, but I think this kind of falls under graphics. It's just like how difficult it was to like tell who the enemy was, like especially like in the Europe area.
Every
enemy was dressed the same, but then your friends were dressed the same. Like when Jake and Sherry show up, they're dressed up like civilians. They're not dressed up like military dudes. So like I just couldn't tell what was even happening.
I could not so when you play with someone, your name shows up, but it doesn't say Chris. It doesn't say Piers. It doesn't say Ally. I cannot tell you how many times during those European parts that I would be like, huh! And you'd be like, what? And be like, an enemy was standing next to me for like 30 seconds, and I thought it was an ally, and then they hit me, whatever.
Exactly.
So like,
or vice versa. I shot a whole clip at a guy, and then it turned out to be Jake, and now I wasted a whole clip. Like it's like in a game where I'm like desperate to not waste ammo. I saw a guy running at me and was shooting at him. Yeah, and then I'm like, oh, it's Jake. Damn it.
The China parts, they generally tend to be like, I don't think in the China parts you have many parts where you're like, I have a lot of allies. So that's a little bit different. Although many times, and this is always a complaint in games, I don't care if it's horror or not, why, make it darker, please. Like, make a dark room with dark enemies. Please make me turn my brightness up to like 1,000,000. Exactly. I'm that guy that when it's like adjust the brightness so you can barely see a thing.
They say. Yeah.
The whole way up. I don't care. Like I just did it for Batman. They're like adjust the brightness till Batman's logo is barely visible. I did it the whole way up. I couldn't see the freaking logo, so I was like, I guess I'll do it the whole way up. I don't know. So again, it's like make a dark place and then make the enemies really dark. And it's like I get it. Like whatever. You can be a horror game and have everything dark and have everything spooky and scary. Or you can be an action game and have it where I can see what enemies I have to fight.
If I have
How many times were we in a place and we were like, oh, that's an enemy? Like, and that's a. I don't even know if I was going to bring that up, but that's a great point. How many times were we just so annoyed with that? It looks okay. There's many different types of enemies. You can tell where you are and stuff like that.
Like the enemies, like you said, they have cool designs. Like that is something that Resident Evil games in general do well. And so like even in this, there were like. That final boss thing was really creepy looking with the like skull that you could see through it, and it was like all tentacly, and like it looked cool, and like there was that, but like it still was just like ugh.
Yeah.
Like, but I mean, yeah, I give it a better score for graphics over the other ones.
I got really nothing more to say on this one. Like a 4. Like it's.
I'd give it a 5. It was average.
Just pretty much average.
Yep.
Fun factor. Let me put this in a bubble here. And say if I gotta view this as the game was I guess I'll view this as a multiplayer game. Okay, and just be like, I can't view it as the game intended as a single player game, because if that was that, it would be a 1. The only reason I had fun with this game is I got to play it with you, and I got to have fun making fun of it.
Exactly.
But that is not how it was intended. So the fact that the only reason I had fun was we could make fun of it constantly and just like have empathy for each other for both having to deal with this BS. Right. I mean, I
agree.
With that being said, I have to give it a 1. I mean, it was only fun because we could joke around about it.
Yeah, if I was playing it by myself, I wouldn't have. I would have shut it off.
You would have gotten like one chapter and been like, oh my god. And that's what I did the first time. I played it by myself. I did Jake's quest the whole way through. And I was like, I'm a guy who has played a lot of the old school Resident Evil games a million times. Oh, yeah. And I was like, a couple years later, was like, I never played Resident Evil 6 again, did I? It's like, that's bad as hell. So, like I said, 1, it was just no fun. The only fun I had was the fact that we'd be like, hey. Yeah. Which, by the way, before I told you about it, when we finished 5, I was like, dude, get ready. Could you even imagine, looking back? I was like, you were probably like, okay, maybe it's not as good, but like you could never have understood the cluster that it was.
Because when we were playing 5, we weren't making fun of anything about it being bad. We were making fun of sometimes how over the top enemies were. Like we would be rushing from one thing right to the next, and then there was like a big boss. That big boss that we shoot in the face. And it's like so funny, and it's like, oh my god, this guy's huge, and blah blah blah. And then you would just like go to the next thing, and it's like, whoa, this is crazy. Like, so when you said just wait, I was like, is it gonna be like ridiculous, even more ridiculous enemies or something? Like, I had no idea that it was just gonna be bad gameplay.
Oh, it was just the worst. So what do you give that on fun factor?
1. Yeah, I can't.
Now, very last one, and I'm gonna go ahead and say 1 as well. Replayability. Yeah. I don't ever want to touch it again. Now that we did it, I feel proud that I got through it. Just like if you watch a really bad movie, you're like, yeah, I got through it. Whatever. Yeah. Like I have patience in my life. Right. But that's literally the only reason for that one.
There's no reason to replay it.
So you give that one a 1 as well.
Yeah. I mean, they have it set up for so much replayability.
And isn't that the sad part about it?
Like you would have to 5 had a lot of things you could upgrade, right? But there's like these skills you could buy, and they all cost like thousands of skill points, and like you get like maybe like 2,000 or 3,000 skill points, unless if you're exploring everything, you might get more, but like in a certain part, you might get like a couple thousand skill points. Like maybe for a whole chapter, you might get like 10,000 skill points. There are things that cost like 80,000 skill points. So that means you're playing that whole chapter 8 times to get that one skill. And there was skills that we didn't even unlock. There were skills that were we didn't even see, because it said you have to finish the quest in order to unlock these. And I'm like, this is so much there.
I felt like we picked up everything we possibly could as far as the skill points were concerned. And at the end of all 3 quests, I only had firepower level 1. And it's like, there was a firepower level 3, right?
Yeah. Okay. I finally got it up to 3, but I didn't buy anything else.
I did all that stuff, and I didn't get firepower level 2. And it's like, there's got to be a mixture. Like, yeah, you don't get all the items you want in RE5 right away, but like you play it like maybe 2, maybe 2.5 times, and you have everything. Right. Clearly, if you wanted everything good in there, you're playing the game like a million times. Absolutely. And it's just like, damn, like when we picked up skill points that were like 50, I was like, sometimes I was like, it doesn't take an item slot, but I was like, why do I even bother pressing square on this? Right. The only ones I wanted to pick up were the big ones that were like 2,000 or 5,000, and even that 2,000 or 5,000 is like nothing for what they were asking for.
Yeah, like, I need to get 80,000.
It's like you want a PS4 and someone's like, here's $1, and you're like, it goes towards it, sure, but it's like I'm still way far away. So overall, I added it up to, this is going to come no surprise, 13.5 for me, which comes to, when divided by 6, 2.25. You were a little nicer, 14.5, which comes to 2.42.
All right.
I mean, listen, we're gonna wrap this up with saying there are a lot of, things out there about like, oh, worst game ever, very famously E.T., which, by the way, this is something for another part, but E.T. was made by like one dude in 3 weeks.
Right, exactly.
we got to look at this in the grand scheme of things. Resident Evil 6 is the 10th or 11th or whatever member of a very popular series made by a very big...
It's a AAA
oh
title.
my goodness.
Absolutely.
Capcom, dude? Absolutely. By a company who ruled the roost for 15 years.
Every new Resident Evil game that comes out is like a big seller. Like, everybody's gonna buy it because they're like, ooh, it's the next Resident Evil game.
It clearly had a decent budget. It's by Capcom. We have to keep that all into consideration when we're talking about the worst game. Because, like, dude, yes. Could you find some indie game that just sucks? Yeah.
Right.
Come on.
Yeah,
like, you can be you could find some, actually, Bolt, the game based off the kids show for 360 is the worst game. Dude, it was like some company that just was like, Disney was like, make this game, here's $500,000, which sounds like a lot, but isn't for a game. No. And they're like, okay, whatever, great, and they get it done. This, in consideration, it is like I haven't played Duke Nukem Forever, but it has to be on that level. Although it's not as famous because, for whatever reason, it's just, it's the perfect mixture of aggravating, a lot of action but boring, just frustrating. Just I cannot think of another game where I'm like, it was so action packed, but it was so like, boring.
Exactly. Remember like the beginning when they're like when Jake and when Leon and they're running away from something and they're zombies and then they get on a helicopter and then it crashes and then they like run away and everything is smashing and exploding and smashing and exploding and you're running and you're like, this sucks. Like,
and it's
I'm
like
so
the very beginning.
Bored. I'm so like bored and I'm annoyed and I'm just like, this is so dumb. Like, I'm not excited in any way. I'm not like, oh man, what's gonna happen? I'm just like annoyed.
How can you have a game with so many like if you were like, here's an explosion, I'd be like, that is by nature exciting. Right. It's a chemical process that's kind of cool. Like, if you were like, dude, you want to go see an explosion? I'd probably be like, yeah. Are you kidding me?
Well,
I will never drop that 13-year-old part of me.
Right.
But like,
think about the end of Resident Evil 3, Nemesis. Is that the one with the explosion? Or is it 2?
They pretty much all are, but 3 they literally they nuke the city.
Yeah. And it looked, I remember thinking like that was so cool and exciting when it came out, and I was like being like, whoa! And like I remember like being like excited, and that wasn't even like while you were playing, that was a cutscene.
Yeah, that was
so like now we've got to the point where you could be running and physically moving your character while there's explosions, and I was just like,
I mean, if every quest has a part where you're like running away from a series of explosions and you like jump onto, dude, let's end it with this. There's a part in Jake's quest where you're on a attack chopper and the enemy that's following you somehow finds its way onto it.
Right.
Whatever.
Rips off the door, and
you have to jump from helicopter to helicopter. I mean, can you imagine? Like, that is like, if you were like, what? I don't know. I can't, like an action series that's over the top. Like, if you were like, dude,
like Expendables or something where they're trying to
that's purposeful. Right. That's and yeah.
Right,
if you were like in the new Fast and the Furious, they jump from car to car, blah blah blah. I'd be like, yeah, I can see that. You know what I mean? It's like literally that, where you're like, exactly. And like people like the series, but it's also silly and over the top.
Right.
You know.
Right. That's the point.
And it's just like that happens in this game, and we got other stuff to talk about in other games, but like literally, like I want to recommend it to say, if you have a good friend that like you can go through it and like make fun of it, but I can't. No. Because I was so like aggravated playing, just like, when's it over? I would look at the clock and be like, my God, it was 3 hours and we did nothing. It's just, I guess, man, if you're feeling adventurous and you're like, I just want to play a bad game, play Leon's Quest. Don't play Jake's; it's the worst. Yeah. Leon's Quest might at least give you like an idea of what's going on, and you can be like, oh, it was bad, and then like you can take our word on it and be like, well, everything's worse. Every other thing is worse in it, and that's about it. If you're like, whoa, this part was bad, it's like, I got something to tell you, boy.
Yeah, you have no idea.
So that's it. 2.25 and 2.42. Truly Sounds terrible. Good. Probably one of the worst AAA big titles ever. Thank you once again for joining us, Parker. And next episode we will have hopefully some better news about Resident Evil. Thank you again for listening.